A court hearing is on the docket to determine child support for little Jaylen Wright. But the night before the hearing, Jaylen and her mom, Wynetta, disappeared.
We had a person that just simply vanished off the face of the earth.
After a desperate search lasting 5 days, Wynetta's body is finally found. In the woods surrounding a community center, shot to death. Nearby, police discover her innocent baby Jaylen still strapped in her car seat, dead from exposure to searing heat. Who would commit these two heinous crimes? The most likely suspect? Wynetta's former boyfriend, undercover cop Richmond Phillips. But when detectives check with his supervisors at the DC Police,
the information they provided to the Prince George's County detectives was that, yes, he was at work that day.
He was at
or
work.
Or at least on the books, he was at work.
On the books, maybe. But then, Wynetta's cousin calls in a tip that blows the lid off Phillips' alibi.
Wynetta had told her Richmond Phillips wanted to meet to talk about the paternity hearing the next day, possibly to see if she would cancel it.
On a hunch, investigators request surveillance footage from the park not far from where Wynetta's body is found. And the entire crime comes into focus.
So this camera the entire time is basically spinning around the area.
Correct. So she sits on the top of the bench. And the other thing, kind of, if you notice, he's constantly looking around, almost like he's thinking about it. You know, he's trying to rationalize, am I gonna do it, am I gonna do it?
Investigators determined Phillips ended his paternity suit with a gunshot to Wynetta's head.
You see, yeah, she's kind of reclined.
When the camera went around, he likely shot her. How unbelievable is it that the moment when she's shot and the moment when she's dragged both don't appear on camera, but everything else does?
Yeah, it's amazing, but for whatever reason, the camera missed it.
So she's dead at that point, and her car's mysteriously leaving.
Right. And you can see the car go by, and it's going in the direction that it was discovered. And then a few minutes later, you'll see him walk by in the direction where he had parked his truck.
So the baby's in the back of the car at this point.
In the car seat, yeah.
After murdering his ex, cops say Phillips moves her car to a nearby parking lot, leaving his own baby daughter to die a horrible death.
He had no love for Jaylen, who was his own child. He left the windows up, parked the car in between a big truck in a remote area where no one would find it. You know, it was obvious what his intentions were. He wanted Jaylen to die.
Investigators have seen the crime. Now detectives grill the man they think did it, their fellow cop, Richmond Phillips.
Did he come in willingly?
He did come willingly, which I thought, at that point I thought, well, this can't be the guy, why would he come willingly? But then he started acting a little suspicious.
For hours, Phillips sweats through an interrogation.
Want me to get you a paper towel?
No.
The undercover man maintains he hasn't talked to Wynetta in over a year, even feigning disgust that she stood him up at the paternity hearing.
That morning I said, thanks for standing me up.
Did she respond back to you, remember?
Nope.
Do you think that he thought he was going to outsmart you?
He probably did, and I think he's one of those guys that could always talk his way out of something, and he felt like he could do that.
But then Detective Brown drops hard evidence on Phillips. They know Wynetta was going to meet him.
She confides in her family that she's going to meet the father of the baby.
Okay.
Wynetta's phone records show she was at the park.
Obviously, based on her cell phone, we know she's at the location.
Detective Brown tightens the screws, telling Phillips he has the park's surveillance tape.
They have very detailed camera systems at all their locations. And there's cameras that scope out to the parking lot, and there's cameras on the back four corners, which creates a problem for you, unfortunately. Remember I told you I thought it may show something? Well, it did. Basically what they tell me here with this video.
Unbelievably, Phillips still thinks he can slip out of this.
Am I being held? Can I go?
We're still talking for a minute. It's getting a little more serious. And based on what we have at this point, we're going to charge you tonight. For whatever reason, you killed her.
The detective doesn't get a confession, but he does get enough to lock Richmond Phillips up.
You have your badge on you?
The DC cop is stripped of his badge and gun and charged with a double homicide.
We took him just like a common criminal in handcuffs to the jail.
Even at trial, Phillips thinks he could swagger his way out of it.
We developed a really good, strong case, and he insisted that he was not guilty even up until his sentencing date.
But after only a few hours of deliberation, the jury's verdict is in. Richmond Phillips is found guilty for murdering his ex-girlfriend, Wynetta Wright, and their child, Jalen.
He's like the devil walking the earth. That's what he is. It's like, I'm glad they got him. Glad that he is not going to get away with it.
Phillips is sentenced to 2 life terms. He'll never again be a free man. But outside the prison walls, Wynetta's mom is still bound by grief. A grandmother left to bury 2 generations of her family.
And you made a choice to put them together.
Yes, because they were always as one, so I didn't want to separate them. Just let them go together to the end.